Right, so we're back after painting, decaling, varnishing, and now we're on to the final stages of weathering. And I've done a little work just to show you what we're doing. So we're using oils. So there's my oils prepared on a piece of card about a day ago, and you can see the linseed oil has been wicking out the oils, so you're left with pure pigment, which means they dry a lot quicker. And I'm using AK's odeless thinners as a means to rehydrate them and work them. And what I've done is I've used a combination of oils on this side of the aircraft right down to the tail to bring some saturation back into the green, because it's a little desaturated. If you look on this side where we've painted it on and we've lightened the colour, and it's desaturated a little bit. So with the yellows we're adding to that weathered look, but we're also giving a bit more saturation back in the green just to make it a bit brighter rather than washed out. And I think you can see on the spine of the fuselage we've got that worn, some bleached paint look. We've also got a little bit of weathering on the fuel filler points here on the wing root. So we've got some spillage and some streaking. And I've weathered the bombs. So that's just using the using this oil here. I've used the bomb to point this oil here. I mixed with these two to get that sort of grime grey colour, just to tone down the bombs and just give them a bit more filth, because usually the bombs were pretty mucky. Drop tanks, we've weathered them. Again, not actually sure if they were used, but there's no plug to fill the wings. So we've got the filler point, we've got spillage, and then we've got accumulations on the bottom and staining, and that's on one, and then just to be even up, got that on the other one. So they're all weathered, ready to go. So all that's really left to do is to finish this wing and this sort of front side of the fuselage. We've done the rear and the rear back, so we've just got this side to do. So it's a simple process, and it's something that just takes a little bit of practice, but it's very doable. If I just zoom in just a little bit, there we go. So for application of oils, I've got a 502 Abteilung modelling brush, and that's a number 0. That's a reasonably fine point. And then for burnishing, I use a combination of an old worn flat Daler and Rowley number 8 and a makeup brush I got from my good lady wife. It's really good for feathering in, removing brush streaks and whatnot. Now this paint is actually drying up quite quickly, so you can see that it's still moldable, but you have to work at it to get plenty on the brush, which is to our advantage, because you don't want to overload the brush. We're only working with small quantities of paint. So we just pick an area that we've already highlighted, and we just touch in random patterns, or accentuate the fade in that we've already put on. Try not to overload the area. Right, so there we go, we've got a start. Now, there's one or two ways we can do this. We can do this dry blending. So with a dry brush, you want to stipple first, just to work it in, and then there we go. See, that's burnished in beautifully, and it's fairly lightened the colour. Okay, and that's why you don't actually need a lot of oil. A little bit of oil goes a long way. And you can use little circular motions, or you can use, again, streaking. Whatever way works best to get the oil worked into the panel. And the beauty of using a satin or a matte varnish is you've got a nice finish for the oil to get a grip to. There we go. And you can see straight away the colour difference. It's quite stark, but don't worry about that, because we can tone it down if we're not happy with it. So go into these ones and we'll just rub it back, and then go in with that rotary motion, and it's starting that blending process. Now that looks quite stark, so we have to think to ourselves, is that, are we happy with that? Might be too strong. Now I have a number 6 Dale and Rowley flat that's knackered as well, but it's perfect for weathering. You just want to touch the spirits and it'll automatically wick up. You want to knock off the bulk of the mineral spirits. You don't want to be flooding the area when you're doing this. And again, you can come in with a stippling motion. And that will help blend the paint in further. And you can knock off any paint, because you will lift paint away, so you just see it's going on the paper towel. So you knock it off, clean the brush and go back in. And then this is where your soft brushes come in real handy. You just want to flick to the back. Flick to the back. There we go. Now you see that's toned that down significantly, but it's still left the saturation of the green. And that's how you can, if you think you've over applied, you can go back in and just tone it down. And that works with all the panels. The 6, that's the 8. And I always have 2 flat brushes, and it tends to be the smaller of the 2 that I will use for wet work. Although I say wet work, it is barely wet. And the larger of the 2 I'll use for dry blending. And you can see straight away that just with that little bit of work, we've knocked that right back. You can still see it, it's still there, but it's not as stark and in your face. And that's the beauty of oils. Now if I wanted to get rid of that completely, piece of kitchen towel, liberal coating of mineral spirits, and just rub the whole lot off. So there we go. So that you can see there, we've got that lovely piece of panel there, and that panel's there, and if you look at it compared to the rest of the panels, the saturation, the colour saturations come right back, the lightening, the weathering's come right back. Now the same goes for the brown. You've got the choice of using either the white or the smoke. Always clean your brush off, so just dip it in the spirits, bit of tissue, and rub, so you don't just contaminate the colours too much. It doesn't need to be perfectly clean, it just needs to be clean enough that you're not blending the colours together too much. So we're taking a little bit of the colour, and we want to do this panel here. It's already got a bit of lightening. Again, what you can do is you can actually use this brush to start the streaks and the highlights. Now come straight back in with the number 8, hold under the wing so we don't damage it. And blend. That might be, I think you can see there's a little bit of tiny yellow going off there. So you'll have to clean the brush, which means, yeah, which means it'll be slightly damper. It doesn't matter if you dry it well enough. There we go. Same here. So bring it back, direction of airflow. And then there we go, blend it away. So let's lighten it a little bit, but obviously because we took a bit off with the moist brush, we can come back in. I'll do a more defined line and then bring it back. Okay, and then blend. And you can see I'm hardly putting any pressure on the brush, just letting the brush do the work. And it will naturally drag the paint. You put a bit more pressure, you'll work it a little harder. And there we go. So that panel is now nicely lightened. So that's the technique. We can also use the darker colors if you want to do some staining. So with a bit of, clean the brush, and with a bit of thinners you can go in and we can activate more of the paint. You see we're bringing that down there. And we can just touch that in. Okay. Lots of fuel stains on the wing root. Boot marks. A few up there. And then wick that back. Now we've got one here. There we go. Now, again, we're going to use a slightly moist brush with this. I'm just using a number 8. And again, I'm knocking off as much of the thinners as I can. Obviously I've used the edge of the rim of the bottle to get the bulk of it off so we don't waste any. And then with that stippling motion, all we want to do is dilute the spillage patches just a little bit, just to make them a little bit more transparent. And then start from the bottom and working your way up. I'm going to feather out the leak. When you're happy, just stop. If you want to weather it more, just go back in there. And then come in with the blending brush and blend it back. Sometimes you need to go the opposite direction just to move the pigment back up to where you started. Or you could use a stabbing motion. There we go. Right, so I'm going to continue with this and we'll come back when I've got the bulk of the work done. And there we are. So I think you can see now that we've got the increased color saturation, we've got some nice staining and weathering, got some bleaching of the brown, and generally we're moving very rapidly forward to finishing the aircraft. Now I'm actually quite happy with that. I don't really want to do any more it's weathered enough for my tasting. You can go further, and you can weather in the panel lines and, you know, put more streaking on it. It's entirely up to personal taste, but I think I'm happy at the point I'm at, and I'm happy to stop. So what's the next job, I hear you ask? Well, there's one or two things. We have got all the glazing to unmask. I have got the turret on, but I'd finished that separately a while ago, so I've just got it on for safekeeping. We've also got the underside bomb bay to finish off, and the wheel wells to finish off, and the exhaust staining to finish off. So there is quite a bit, but I'm quite confident we're at this point where I think about unmasking. We've also got the aerials to put on and the antenna wires, but that will be the last job. So I'm quite happy to start pulling masks off and opening up this aircraft and seeing just exactly how it's going to look. Right, we're back, and that is the last of the masking off. Not the easiest to see, and I possibly got a little bit of overspray on a couple of these lower pieces of glazing. Win some, lose some. Take it on the chin, learn for next time. But all in all, now the glazing's off, this kit is really starting to come together. One problem I thought I was going to have, and I did have, is that these guns have become unglued from the front of the canopy. So we're going to have to use a bit of white glue to secure them in place. But I think we're looking really good for final construction. So what's next? Well, as you can see, we've got bombs to go in to the bomb bay. We've got the bomb bay doors on, wheel well doors to go on, exhaust staining. We've got the lower pitot tube, and the somewhere here we've got the upper radar antenna and aerial masts. So what I'm going to do is I'll just have a tidy up, and then we'll come back and we'll look at starting to get some of these final bits done.